Hello gorgeous, my name is G.A.G. Dixon. Welcome to Classics Book Club. Every single month we have a new book for this entire year of 2023. If you want to get caught up, there is a free book club list linked below, along with the link of the actual book. These books are classics that you can read and learn something new every time you open it over and over again throughout the years. The book for August is Robert Penn Warren's All the King's Men, published in 1946. It is known as the finest American political novel ever written. Its clear-eyed view of the brutality of politics, its hard-boiled characters, and its deep cynicism make it a rip-roaring read, but it's the deeper view of human nature, flawed but hopeful, that allows for the possibility that a republic might, after all is said and done, succeed. Willie Stark is one of the great characters in American literature, an honest but ambitious country lawyer who learns the game of power politics, then is seduced by it. But it's the characters who orbit around Willie who help define him. Jack Burden, the narrator, an apathetic journalist turned henchman dragged out of his apathy by his own corruption and that of everyone surrounding him, and Stanton, the virginal love interest who falls for Willie, Sadie Burke, the political Svengali who ushers Willie into power only to be destroyed by her vulnerability to him, Lucy Stark, the long-suffering wife who merely hopes to remind Willie of the virtue he has abandoned, and Judge Irwin, the upstanding man of decency with a shady history he can never escape. These characters bring us to the final revelation of All the King's Men, that we are all imperfect and that such imperfection must never be allowed to excuse our own failures, that in the end the universe is not a pitilessly deterministic place, but one in which our actions matter. Robert Penn Warren was born in 1905 in Kentucky, this beautiful state, the oldest of 3 children. He was literarily oriented from early on. By the age of 16, he published his first poem, but his ambitions toward a military career were stifled by the loss of his left eye and an accident playing with his younger brother. Thanks to that injury, he lost his appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy and instead attended Vanderbilt University. He moved on to graduate work at the University of California, then Yale University, and finally in 1928, he became a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University. His teaching career was lengthy and spanned a multiplicity of institutions of higher learning. Warren won the Pulitzer Prize for All the King's Men and 2 more of his poetry and became America's first poet laureate in 1986. He died in 1989. As a born and bred Southerner, Warren was a vocal advocate on behalf of segregationism in his early years, but he recanted those views in the mid-1950s and became a vocal proponent of racial integration. In 1965, he published a collection of interviews with civil rights figures including Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. He became friends with Ralph Ellison, author of Invisible Man, but he also remained a supporter of Southern agrarianism, which defended the South's legacy of agriculture and religiosity. Warren said that he had the deepest awareness of religion's importance and stated that thinkers who had impacted the writing of All the King's Men included Dante, Machiavelli, and William James. All of those influences can certainly be felt in All the King's Men. All the King's Men focuses on Willie Stark, who is clearly modeled on Louisiana politician and demagogue Huey P. Long, nicknamed Kingfish. Long was governor of Louisiana from 1928 to 32, and then a senator from 1932 until he was assassinated in 35. A radical Democrat, he called for more governmental control of industry, more government spending, and more authoritarian control. Long, like Willie Stark, was the product of a poverty-stricken background. He began as a country lawyer, then won election to the Louisiana Public Service Commission, where he ended up arguing before the Supreme Court. He ran for governor once, unsuccessfully, but then began to engage in serious class warfare rhetoric, getting himself elected governor. He was impeached in 1929 for abuse of power, but the impeachment collapsed. He set up the law enforcement of the state so that it was answerable to him personally. After defeating his impeachment, Long said, "I used to try to get things done by saying please. Now I dynamite him out of my path." Long served as both governor and senator-elect, using any power at his disposal to maintain his own authority. Long rewarded his political cronies and punished his political enemies. His Share Our Wealth program was so popular that Franklin D. Roosevelt essentially hijacked major elements of it in order to forestall a Long 1936 presidential campaign. Political sources speculated that Long wanted to split the vote with FDR, ending in the election of a Republican, and then run again 4 years later, taking the presidency. On September 8, 1935, Long was assassinated by his son-in-law of one of his political opponents after Long redistricted a Way-Pavey seat. The shooter was one Dr. Carl Weiss. After speculation suggested perhaps Weiss had not in fact shot Long, but that Long was caught in the crossfire when the bodyguards fired back at Weiss. Warren wrote of the resemblance between Long and Willie Stark's stories. The difference between the person Huey P. Long and the fictional Willie Stark may be indicated by the act that in the verse play, Proud Flesh, the name of the politician was Talos, the name of the brutal blank-eyed iron groom of Spencer's Fairy Queen, the pitiless servant of the Knight of Justice. My conception grew wider, but that element always remained, and Willie Stark remained. In one way, Willie Talos. In other words, Talos is the kind of doom that democracy may invite upon itself. The book, however, was never intended to be a book about politics. Politics merely provided the framework, story in which the deeper concerns, whatever the final significance, might work themselves out. While All the King's Men revolves around the singularly compelling figure of Willie Stark, the narrator is Jack Burton, a disillusioned former blue blood who has squandered his bloodlines and instead settled for life as a dirt digger for Willie. The story of Burton's disintegration and then rebuilding is contrasted with that of Willie, whose strength seems to wax and wane inversely with Jack's. When Willie is idealistic, Jack is cynical, and vice versa. When Willie is powerful, Jack is weak, and vice versa. The book begins forward in Jack's timeline. He has been tasked with digging up dirt on Judge Irwin, a boyhood friend and mentor. The story begins with Jack as a child, brought up in a dissolute home by a gold-digging mother, abandoned by a passively saintly father, the scholarly attorney. His own mother sends him away to school while she pursues a number of other suitors. Jack lacks ambition, and his heart is broken by Anne Stanton, who seems put off by his lack of ambition. His love for Anne is placid and peaceful. When Anne breaks up with him, he seems most disconnected from the event. He attempts to throw himself into a PhD dissertation about Cass Mastern, Civil War era gentleman who cuckolds his best friend with his wife, then becomes an abolitionist before dying in the war. Jack finds himself unable to finish that project because he is so unlike Mastern, who took responsibility at a root level or his own actions. Mastern's sense of deep responsibility disturbs and alienates Jack. He runs from it and instead cultivates a persona of cynical detachment and morality of determinism. Jack is a nihilist in desperate search of meaning, and he finds it, at least initially, in Willie Stark. As Willie will later tell Jack, it's only natural that Jack ends up working for him. After all, Willie is a man of drive and purpose, and Jack has none. Willie's transformation from the honest hick to power broker governor is the story of politics itself. The struggle between principle and pragmatism, the politician's disdain for the people combined with a true desire to help them from time to time, the substitution of ambition for altruism. Willie begins the book as a plodding, honest farmer lawyer. As Jack observes, metaphysically, it was the boss. When Jack meets him, Willie is deeply in love with his wife Lucy. He is a devoted husband and father, but Willie has something other men lack: true ambition. He wants more than the life of a farmer or even lawyer. He wants to do something great, and unlike other ambitious men, Willie has a unique quality: charisma. He doesn't discover that charisma right away, not while he is still concerned first and foremost with doing good. He does so with the white-hot fury of a crusader, but with the weeding tone of a schoolmarm. Because he cares about doing good, he believes others will too. It takes something beyond ambition and the desire to do good to shake loose Willie's charisma. As it turns out, the truest form of populist charisma doesn't come from a desire to do good, but from the passion of a wounded ego. Willie runs for governor because he is deceived into it. He's told by Tiny Duffy and the power brokers in the state to run the split vote with another candidate, thus handing the governor's mansion to the third candidate. He doesn't know that, and so day in and day out, he pounds the campaign trail, hoping to convince voters through the power of reason, until one day, Sadie Burke explains to him that he's being played. Suddenly, the true Willie is awakened, his inner fire, his monster is loose, he's drunk and he's angry. Willie, for the first time, feels personally wronged. He feels personally responsible for swinging the axe. People in a mob will be something they might never be individually, and that makes an individual who will be that avatar unique. If Willie is an authoritarian, it's because the mob is authoritarian. His motto is pure populism, and that ability, an inability that spans the political aisle today, is magical and unique. It funnels popular emotion to a focal point, the politician himself, and allows the politician to mold the people to his will, to offer them a solution to their shared problem. The solution Willie offers, of course, is false, for no man can offer true solution without problem of rage and unhappiness, but the demagogue offers it nonetheless. That's the magnetic appeal of demagogues, as Jack Burton describes. You saw the eyes bulge suddenly. You knew something had happened inside him. The people love Willie because he embodies them and all their cruelty and rage and passion. As Willie's ambitions grow, so too do his sexual appetites. The devoted family man turns to a long string of affairs, most notably with Sadie Burke, embodiment of cynical politicking. Sadie is a longtime political operative, a woman who is no stranger to getting into bed with her clients. She's the first instrument of Willie's awakening from honest local farmer into gubernatorial power broker, as she sees herself as the chief instrument in Willie's success. But because Sadie is so invested in the creation of the boss, she has no capacity to separate from him. The mere thought of Willie leaving her raises in her the specter of murder. But Sadie is far from Willie's only affair. He takes up with Anne Stanton too, and falls for Willie only after realizing realizing that man is a sinful creature, and that revelation comes courtesy of Jack, who tells her that her father, Governor Stanton, was involved in a political cover-up on behalf of Judge Irwin. She falls into bed with Willy because he wasn't like anybody else. All men are fallible, Anne believes, then why not fall for Willy? The people know about Willy's sexual profligacy, of course, they always do, but as Jack says, the mob is rather forgiving of such profligacy so long as their illusions about core moral values remain intact. Willy routinely goes back to his farm to do photo ops with his alienated wife. The power of demagoguery is not merely the power to wield the mob as a weapon, it's the power of willingness to overrule the rule of law. Willy believes that in practical terms, the law is a mere tool to be broken and reshaped as necessary. The law is always too short and too tight for growing humankind. The best you can do is something and then make up some law to fit, and by the time the law gets on the books, you would have done something different. The rules may be necessary as a matter of temporary convenience, but the moment they become inconvenient, they must be discarded. This pragmatist view of politics is part and parcel of progressive politics of the early 20th century, which saw their culmination in the era of FDR and Long, the belief that constitutional structures were shackles to be broken based on necessity. As Woodrow Wilson says, the president is at liberty, both in law and in conscience, to be as big a man as he can. His capacity will set the limit. Jack, who has seen the disconnect between the people of his childhood and burdens landing in the citizens of the state, is willing to give Willy the benefit of that power. He lectures his upper crust friends. No wonder that American founders feared the mob and the demagogues who manipulate them. As Alexander Hamilton wrote, when a man unprincipled in private life, desperate in his fortune, bold in his temper, possessed of considerable talents, having the advantage of military habits, despotic in his ordinary demeanor, known to have scoffed in private at the principles of liberty, when such a man is seen to mount the hobby horse of popularity, to join in the cry of danger to liberty, to take everyday opportunity of embarrassing the general government and bringing it under suspicion, to flatter and fall in with the nonsense of the zealots of the day. To that end, Willy turns Jack's search for truth and search for dirt, conflating the uncovering with human sin with the cleansing of politics. But in reality, of course, Willy wants dirt so he can use it. After all, says Willy, dirt's a funny thing. There ain't a thing but dirt on this green God's globe except for what is underwater, and that's dirt too. It's dirt that makes grass grow. A diamond ain't a thing in the world but a piece of dirt that got awful hot and got a mighty picked up a handful of dirt and blew on it and made you and me a George Washington and mankind blessed in faculty and apprehension. It all depends on what you do with the dirt. Please excuse my lack of southern accent to really portray this, especially Kentucky accent's really hard to pin down. For Willy, the nature of man's sinfulness isn't a source of lamentation, it's simply useful. If everything is bad, that doesn't foreclose the good, it just means that the bad must be the source of the good. This total level of moral relativism, full dedication to the presumption that ends are arbitrary and that all means are justified in pursuit of them, requires the death of God. And indeed, Jack Burton's embrace of the morality relativistic ethos that supplies him with something to do each day ends in the abandonment of God. Jack reasons himself out of the belief in God by suggesting that all of life is motion, that God is beyond motion, that therefore God is dead, that the continuation of life relies on the absence of God, or alternatively, he reasons that perfection exists only in non-being, so God must not exist. But all of this is too labored by half. In the end, Jack wants to believe that he is not responsible for his own actions, but that fate or instinct can be truly blamed for the events of the world. After Jack finds out Anne's affair with Willy, he goes out to the West Coast, where he rents a hotel room and simply lies around. And on the way back, he discovers what he calls the secret of the great twitch, while watching a man's eye twitch at a roadside station. You would think he was going to wink, but he wasn't going to wink. The twitch was simply an independent phenomenon unrelated to the face or to what was behind the face or to anything in the whole tissue of phenomena, which is the world we are lost in. What was alive was the twitch of which he was no longer aware. Did the man's face know about the twitch? You are at one with the great twitch. All is fated. No one is to blame, certainly not Jack Burton and not even Willie Stark. Those who believe that action matters, that there is a moral standard that lies beyond the relativism of the Willie Starks, are fools railing against the realities of life. Lucy in particular is a fool, she who insists desperately, "Oh Jack, I tried to do right. I love my boy and I tried to raise him right. I love my husband and tried to do my duty. And they love me. I think they love me. After everything, I have to think that." In the end, what Willie, it turns out, was wrong. Jack was wrong. Free exists. We bear immense responsibility for our own actions. Truth matters, but so does grace. Willie is the first to prove Jack's deterministic view of the world wrong. He does so by turning away his sins after his son Tom is paralyzed while playing football. His wife Lucy saves him when Willie, clinging to the image of his own greatness, tells her that he will name his hospital after Tom, Lucy says, "Oh Willy, don't you see? Those things don't matter. Having somebody's name cut on a piece of stone, getting it on the paper, all those things, oh Willy, he was my baby boy, he was our baby boy, and those things don't matter." And of course she is right, because buildings fade away and accomplishments turn to dust, but human life matters, and its meaning carries right down generation to generation. Willy breaks it off with both Anne and Sadie. He tells Tiny Duffy he won't be allowing him to participate in graft. He seems to be ready to reset his life, to reorient himself towards some true vision of the good. Then tragically he is shot because events are not arbitrary, nor are they fated. They happen because we set in motion the chain of events that surrounds us. Adam shoots Willy after finding out from an anonymous phone call, a phone call made by Tiny Duffy, but prompted by Sadie Burke, that Anne has been sleeping with Willy. Enraged, he kills Willy and is killed himself. Adam is the flip side of Jack, a man too pure for the world, too dedicated to the proposition that innocence is possible, that man can live without sin. Adam may be too innocent to live with the world and just innocent enough to destroy the world. But the realities of life lie somewhere between Adam's absolutism and Willy's relativism. In death, Willy leaves Jack with the final message, the potential for human change. His final words to Jack echo with the ring of truth, and it might even been different yet if it hadn't happened. Jack takes the message to heart. He changes his life, he marries Anne, he begins to work on a book about Castmaster and realizing the truth in Master's philosophy. He moves into his father's house, grateful for the fact that Judge Irwin was his father. He realizes that his truth had set him free, his mother free, his father free. Jack takes in the man he thought was his father, the scholarly attorney. He realizes that Willy's philosophy of making good from bad wasn't quite correct. Rather, life is about making something good out of the past. For only out of the past can you make the future. The true philosophy of All the King's Men finds its exposition in a note written by the scholarly attorney shortly before his death. It's deeply religious and it is deeply meaningful. It expresses the tragic view of humanity that infuses biblical religion but adds the dose of hope Willy Stark never quite saw, at least not until the end. The creation of man, whom God in his foreknowledge knew doomed to sin, was the awful index of God's omnipotence, for it would have been a thing of trifling and contemptible ease for perfection to create mere perfection. To do so would, to speak the truth, be not creation but extension. Separateness is identity, and the only way for God to create, truly create, man was to make himself separate from God himself, and to be separate from God is to be sinful. The creation of evil is therefore the index of God's glory and his power, but by God's help, by his help and his wisdom. Willy was great, he was sinful, but he tried to do good. Willy's perspective wasn't godless, it was actually godly in a peculiar way. As Jack says, Willy's repentance in his final days was evidence that we matter and that our actions have consequences. Willy, in the end, restores Jack Burton's faith. Thank you so much for watching. Sign up to the list link below, give this a like, it's totally free, and subscribe and click the bell for more high quality living in elegant style. I'll see you later!